Hello everyone. Today in this session we are going to begin with a new chapter, that is the flower. As you all know children that and you have already learned that reproduction is the most important function of any living organism for the survival of their species. That means reproduction is the important function of all the living organisms for their survival. In flowering plants, this function is performed by the flowers as it is the reproductive part of the plant. That means in a flowering plant, flower is the reproductive part of a plant. So, in this chapter, we will study about flower. The flower is the most attractive, brightly colored part of the plant. It helps in sexual reproduction and later form fruit and seeds. So, what is a flower? Flower is a highly and it is a brightly attractive colored part of the plant, and it helps in the sexual reproduction, and after that it forms the fruits and seeds. So, we will study about the characteristics of the flower. The flower possesses the following characteristics. The flower is highly modified and specialized shoot meant for sexual reproduction. Flower is a modified and specialized shoot. It is a shoot which is specialized and modified and especially meant for the sexual reproduction. The nodes and internodes are highly condensed to form a flat thalamus or receptacle. You can see here in this diagram of a flower that the nodes and internodes are condensed to form a flat structure, and this flat structure is known as the thalamus. See here, it is known as the thalamus, or it is also known as the receptacle. The thalamus can be flat, conical, concave, or dome-shaped in different species. The shape of the thalamus in different species are different. In some it is flat, in some of the flower it is conical or concave, or in some species it is dome-shaped. The thalamus is very short. It is usually borne at the end of a stalk called the pedicel. You can see here children in this figure the thalamus is very short, and it is usually borne at the end of a stalk. You can see this is the stalk. This is the thalamus and this is the stalk, and this stalk is known as the pedicel. Stalk is known as the pedicel. The flower arises in the axil of a leaf or leaf-like structure called the bract. Now this flower this arises in the axil of a leaf or a leaf-like structure, and this leaf-like structure is known as a bract. The floral parts are borne on thalamus in the form of 4 rolls. You have studied about flower in your previous class also, and you know that a flower has the floral parts, and all these floral parts you can see here, they are borne on this thalamus. See here, these floral parts, they are borne on the thalamus. The 4 rings or rolls of the floral structures from outer to inner side are calyx, that is sepal, corolla, that is petals, androecium, stamens, and gynoecium, carpels. Now see, a flower has 4 rolls, and these 4 rolls are arranged from outer to inner side, and the outer one is known by the name of calyx. That is, the sepals, they are collectively known as calyx. Petals, they are known as corolla. Stamens, androecium, and carpels are known as the gynoecium. Any flower having all the 4 rolls is called complete. That means a flower having all the 4 rolls. All the 4 rolls means this calyx, corolla, androecium, and gynoecium is called a complete flower. Whereas those flowers in which any role is missing are called incomplete flower. If any of the role is missing, any one role is missing, then it is known as an incomplete flower. Androecium and gynoecium are called essential parts as they directly help in sexual reproduction, whereas calyx and corolla are non-essential parts as they are not directly involved in the process of reproduction. So a flower has two parts, that is the essential parts, and androecium and gynoecium are known as the essential parts of a flower. Whereas the calyx and corolla, they are known as the non-essential parts. That means they are not directly involved in the process of reproduction. Androecium and gynoecium, they are directly involved in the process of reproduction. Now, about the parts of a flower. The flower is attached with the stem or its branches with the help of a stalk called pedicel. As I told you, you can see here in the diagram, this is the thalamus and it has a stalk. This stalk is known as the pedicel. If the flower is without pedicel, it is called the sessile. That means a flower without the stalk or without the pedicel is called the sessile. That means they are directly attached to the stem or the branch. The pedicel may arise from the axil of a green leaf-like structure called bract. That means this pedicel arises from the axil of a green leaf-like structure, and that green leaf-like structure is known as the bract. Sometimes the pedicel may bear two small leafy green bract-like structures called the bracteoles. Sometimes they contain two small this green leaf-like structures, and these leaf-like structures, they are called as the bracteoles. The other solen end of the pedicel is thalamus or torus. I told you that all the floral rolls are arranged on a flat or conical structure, and that is known as a thalamus, or it is also known by the name of torus. It represents a condensed shoot. That means this thalamus is a condensed shoot. On the thalamus, usually the four rolls of the floral structures are present. These four rolls from outer to inner side are calyx, corolla, androecium and gynoecium. That means all the four floral rolls, they are arranged on the thalamus, and calyx, corolla, androecium and gynoecium, they are the four rolls of the flower. The first two rolls are the non-essential floral parts, where the inner two rolls are essential parts which are involved in the process of reproduction. Now see here, as you know, this calyx and corolla, they are the non-essential rolls and they are on the outside. Whereas the inner side, that is the rolls androecium and gynoecium, they are present inside the calyx and corolla. That means on the inner side of that, and they are the essential rolls or the essential parts of the flowers, and they take part in the process of reproduction. Now we will study about each floral part. Calyx, they constitute the outermost and lowermost roll. They are mostly small, green, leaf-like structures which cover an unopened floral bud. That means this calyx is green leaf-like structures. They are green in color and they cover an unopened floral bud. That means they surrounds the bud. They protect the inner rolls of the flower in the bud stage. That means the main function of the calyx are green in color, and their main function is to protect the flower when the flower is in the bud stage. It protects the inner rolls of the flower. In some cases, the sepals may be colored like petals. Sometimes, mostly these sepals are green in color, but sometimes they are colored like petals, as in gulmohar, that is also known by the name of flame of forest. Such sepals are called petaloids. That means when the sepals are colored like the petals, they are known as petaloids. That means they are like petals. So they are called by the name of petaloids. The sepals present in the outermost roll may be all fused or free from each other. Accordingly, they are termed as follows. Now, these sepals which are present in the outermost roll may be fused. That means they are joined, or they may be free in different species. So, accordingly, they are termed as follows. If they are fused, they are called by a name. If they are free, they are called by another name. Now we'll see the different types of these sepals. You can see here gamocephalus. Gamocephalus, when all the sepals are fused together fully or partially. When the sepals, they are fused, see here, they are fused, they are joined. This is fully they are joined, and this are also the sepals, and they are partially fused, they partially joined. You can see here, and they are called as gamocephalus. When they are fused together or when they are fused partially, they are known by the name of gamocephalus. They are termed as gamocephalus, and example is sunflower, China rose, marigold, petunia, etc. Another term is polycephalus. When all the sepals are free from each other, they are called polycephalus. See here in this diagram, you can see all the sepals are free. They are not fused, they are not joined, and they are called by the name of polycephalus. Example is ranunculus and brassica. Now, children, you have to learn each term and the examples of these terms. Now, the function of sepal. So, you have understood now what are these sepals. They are green in color. They are main green in color, and accordingly, some are fused and some are free. And if they are fused partially or fully, they are known as gamocephalus. And when they are free, they are called by the name of polycephalus. Now, about their functions. They are primarily protective in function. They protect the inner rolls of the flower in the bud stage. The main function is protection. It protects the flower, and especially when the flower is in the bud stage, and it protects all the inner rolls of the flower. They can also synthesize food as they contain chlorophyll. As these sepals are green in color, so they contain chlorophyll and they synthesize the food. They may also help in attracting insects, birds, and other animals for pollination. Sometimes these sepals are colored, and they attract these insects and birds and other animals for pollination. Additional floral roll outside the calyx is called epicalyx. See, some of the flowers, they have additional floral roll outside the calyx. This is calyx, you can see here, and outside this calyx an additional roll you can see here in this diagram, and this additional roll is known as epicalyx. An example is hibiscus. Now about the corolla. Petals that constitute the second roll are collectively called corolla. So petals, they are collectively called by the name of corolla, and it is the second roll of the flower. They arise inner to end above the sepals on thalamus. They are usually brightly colored and showy leaf-like structures in the day blooming flowers, and strongly scented and whitish in the night blooming flowers. So children, the petals are brightly colored and showy leaf-like. They have showy leaf-like structures in the day blooming flowers. Day blooming flowers means the flowers which bloom during the daytime. They are showy and they are brightly colored. That means why they are brightly colored and showy? To attract the insects for pollination. And strongly scented and whitish in night blooming flowers. They are white in the night blooming flowers. These flowers which bloom during the night, they are mostly white and they are strongly scented. Why they are strongly scented? To attract the nocturnal animals for pollination. Like sepals, they may also be fused or free Correspondingly, they are of two types. As these sepals are fused and free, in the same way, these petals are also fused and some are free. Gamopetalous. When all the petals are fused fully or partially. When all the petals are fused, when they are joined, either they are fully joined or they are partially fused, they are known as gamopetalous. Example is petunia. You can see here they are fused. Petals are fused and it is known by the name of gamopetalous. Polypetalous, when the petals are free from each other. Example, hibiscus. Now these, you can see here in this, the petals are free, and when these petals are free, they are called by the name of polypetalous, and example is hibiscus. Now the function of the corolla or the petals. The primary function of corolla is to attract insects and other animals for pollination. As these petals, they are brightly colored, so their main function is to attract the insects and other animals for pollination. The corolla encloses and protect the stamens and pistil. Another function of corolla is to protect the stamens and pistil, which forms the other roles, or we can call it the essential part of the flower. Some petals are scented with a nectary at the base, which produces sugary nectar. Some petals are scented. They give a beautiful perfume is present in the flower, scented with a nectary and at the base, which produces sugary nectar. Some of the flowers have nectaries, and these nectaries are produce this sugary nectar. Perianth. In some flowers, such as asparagus, non-essential parts of the flower are not differentiated into sepals and petals. Sepals and petals, as you know, they are the non-essential parts of the flower, but they are not differentiated into sepals and petals. We cannot understand whether it is a sepal or a petal. They are not differentiated, and when they are not differentiated, they are collectively known as the perianth. The individual perianth lobes are called the tepals. Here you can see there is no differentiation between the sepal and petal, and they are known as the perianth. And the individual perianth lobe, you can see the individual lobes of the perianth, and they are called as the tepals. The tepals may be greenish. Sometimes these tepals, the individual lobes may be greenish. If they are greenish, they are called as the cephaloid, or beautifully colored. When they are beautifully colored, they are known as the petaloid. The corolla or perianth may sometimes bear outgrowths such as spurs, nectaries, or corona. Sometimes this perianth may bear outgrowths such as spurs, nectaries, and corona. Now we'll see what are spurs. It is the beak-like tube-shaped outgrowth of the perianth, which contains nectar. Example, this balsam, nasturtium, larkspur. Now see here, it is a beak-like tube-shaped outgrowth. See here, in this diagram, you can see a beak-like outgrowth of the perianth, and this beak-shaped outgrowth contains nectar, and this is known as the spur. Example is balsam as nasturtium. Nectary. Special glands developed on or at the base of the floral structures are known as nectaries, which secrete the nectar. Now, some of the special glands are present at the base of the floral structures, and these produces the nectar, or they secrete the nectar, and these glands are known as the nectaries. Corona. Sometimes when the corolla is split, an additional roll consisting of lobes, scales, or hair is formed. It adds to the beauty of the flower. Sometimes when the corolla is splitted, an additional roll consisting of lobes, sometimes lobes are there, scales, or hair is formed, and this All these lobes, scales, and hair, they add beauty to the flower, and such structures are called by the name of corona. So here we end this session, children. In the next session, we will study about the essential roles of the flower. Thank you.